Hi, I'm Max Keiser. Welcome to the Keiser Report. Max and Stacy are in Mexico, and we're heading south, and we're getting closer and closer to the epicenter, the global center point now of the Bitcoin revolution. Stacy.
Right. You could tell we are in Mexico because we have Catherine. She's joined us. She's probably the most famous Mexican, even more so than Frida Kahlo. And she's everywhere. And we also have this octopus. I'm not sure what the octopus is for, but I put it here because it's orange and it's colorful and it's orangish. And of course, Bitcoin is associated with the color orange, and that is in the first headline of this Orthodox Christian New Year. So we are celebrating that as well here on Keiser Report. While we were gone, we saw this, what has been called by international organizations as the Bitcoin experiment is nothing more than the world watching how mass adoption changes a country's economy. If it's for the good, it's game over for Fiat. El Salvador is the spark that ignites the real revolution that is from the president of El Salvador, President Bukele.
That's right. So it's a remarkable statement, similar to the Boston Tea Party or the Declaration of Independence. A president of a country has essentially said that the Fiat era is over. And of course, the Fiat era is focused in the United States and the central bank in Washington, D.C. This was no less a statement of revolution than was made against the English by the American colonies, 240-something years ago. Here, President Bukele is making a declaration of independence against the central banks and principally the United States of America and the U.S. dollar. And the great thing is he's guaranteed to win because Bitcoin is mathematically guaranteed to increase purchasing power over fiat and over gold, and fiat money is mathematically guaranteed to lose purchasing power versus Bitcoin. So he's won before he started. So this is going to be the shortest, least violent, and I should say no violent, revolution in history.
Game over for Fiat. Of course, the second wealthiest man here in Mexico, Ricardo Salinas Pliego, he agreed with him and retweeted this and then said, it is game over for Fiat. Buy Bitcoin and get Bitcoin while you still can. They then had a disagreement over whether or not it would be, Bukele thought it would be the greatest thing, and Ricardo Salinas Pliego, who we know his father very well, he disagreed and said that the end of Fiat would be not so nice.
If you watch that film, The Exorcist, he shows up, and to get the devil out of Linda Blair, there's a lot of projectile vomiting, there's a lot of levitation, the bed is shaking, her eyeballs are spinning around, her head is spinning, right? Eventually, the exorcism is finished. Now, Bitcoin is the exorcism of the U.S. dollar from the body of the global economics system. And of course, there will be some projectile vomiting by economists and by, Paul Krugman. His head will start spinning on his head. The IMF, their head will start spinning. Christine Lagarde will just vomit, projectile vomiting. No, it can't be happening. But it's happening, baby. It's happening. And guess what? Fiat money is deader than the ghost living in your decrepit, ungodly soul.
Right. Actually, this wasn't intended, but it makes sense that we have Catherine here, who is part of Day of the Dead, obviously. She doesn't mind being dead. She celebrates being dead. And this is like the vampire squid that is the U.S. dollar and all of the banking system around it. So this is why we have this here. It wasn't intended, but that is obviously what was speaking to us.
You are retroactively placing significance and context to the props on the set based on the script as it unfolds in real time. Is that even allowed? What? Say what? No, this is obviously Matt Taibbi. He finally crossed over. He's now a squid himself.
Right. Speaking of real time, so while we've been here traveling through Mexico during Christmas, one thing that happened was, this vampire squid of the U.S. empire and the U.S. dollar of debt and empire of debt and all of that stuff, is that a remarkable thing happened, which was that the U.S. issued a $5 million bounty on the head of each of 4 of the sons of El Chapo. which obviously is kind of interfering in the domestic politics of the situation here. Of course, AMLO, the president of Mexico, was not happy with that, but I tweeted this about that. Una cucharadita de su propio chocolate. I had said AMLO should send the federales to arrest the Sackler family, because of course, also during Christmas, we learned that 100,000 Americans died of overdose in the past 12 months. And also for the past 12 months, the number one cause of death for 18 to 45-year-old Americans was overdose. The number two was suicide, but overdose was number one. So it would be the equivalent of AMLO saying, I'm going to go arrest the Sackler family because you won't, so I'll do it.
Yeah, why doesn't AMLO put a bounty on the heads of the Sackler family in the United States? They're responsible. Admittedly, they were involved in a court case and they got to pay a fine, as I recall now, without denying or admitting culpability. It's one of those special deals like Wall Street, where you get to keep 95 cents of every dollar you steal. They got to walk away from 100,000 corpses last year and pay a small fine. And keep the rest. And I think AMLO would be great if he could put out a bounty on the heads of the Sackler family. You know, there's a few other people involved in the drug trade in America. That would be great if AMLO would put a bounty on the heads of those people. And why stop at 5 million? Make it 10 million, make it 20 million. Let's get some incentivization. It's all about incentives. Show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. We'll get Charlie Munger in his, big safari suit will be stalking the Sackler family with his bazooka, trying to make an extra $5 million to add to it the other $1 trillion he made illegally and unlawfully and unceremoniously, I should say, because he's going to be joining our friend very soon.
Right. I might add over Christmas as well, there was a story that there's one of the Sackler families is like Dame somebody, and they're trying to remove her title, honorary title probably, in the United Kingdom. But another spoonful of your own chocolate that AMLO could tell to the United States is, remember, here in Mexico, silver production is a very important part of the economy. And in fact, Mexico is by far the #1 producer of silver. So I also suggested to AMLO should also offer a reward for the arrest of Jamie Dimon for JP Morgan's role in manipulating silver prices. The Department of Justice allowed Dimon to pay a small fine for the bank's role in a 12-year manipulation scheme. Silver is an important industry to Mexico. Dimon should be tried in Mexico. So just like the U.S. is saying the sons of El Chapo should be tried in America, and that's why we put a bounty on them and we want them arrested and extradited to the United States, forgetting the fact that, of course, AMLO would need to approve the extradition. But nevertheless, here, just this past summer, just a few months ago, the United States Department of Justice allowed JP Morgan to get away with yet another silver manipulation scheme, and they paid the largest fine in history regarding precious metals manipulation. That was $1 billion this past year. Taking
pesos directly out of the pockets of millions of Mexicans. So you have the four sons of El Chapo. They've got a price on their head thanks to the U.S. Department of Justice, presumably because they think that America is the beneficiary, or I should say the victim of the drug trade, of which they are a part. And of course, you can dig into the details of that, and you could understand the long history of the CIA's role in perpetrating that drug trade. But putting that aside for a second, the tit for tat here, as you point out, is that AMLO should say, hey, Jamie Dimon, silver is our big industry here. You've been caught now manipulating the price of silver and other precious metals, and of course, rigging markets, and paying, again, that unique deferred prosecution agreement with America, the Alec Baldwin defense. I held the gun, I pulled the trigger, she's dead, but I don't know how it happened. That's the Jamie Dimon defense. Well, AMLO should say, you know what? Let's put a bounty on your head, Jamie Dimon, because you're totally destroying our economy. That's the quid pro quo. This is not being glib. This is not trying to be amusing for folks on TV. This is the God's honest way to implore justice. If you believe in the Bible, if you believe in God, and I know in Mexico and America's got evangelicals Catholicism's big in Mexico. Do you believe in God and justice? Then put down these bounties today. It's an eye for an eye.
Well, of course, these are bounties for the arrest of these people, these individuals. Whether or not, I mean, the Mexican military tried to arrest a few years ago, maybe a year or two ago, the sons of El Chapo, and were met with a military force there. I don't think Jamie Dimon would be as difficult, but in terms of whether or not this is an eye for an eye or a taste of your own medicine, a little teaspoon of your own chocolate, there's another sort of bizarre story that also happened while we have been traveling through Mexico, and that is from the United States, where this little spoonful of chocolate, of toxic chocolate, is the money printing that has been going on, right? And all the money printing is what it has caused is kind of like a proof of stake system. So those who own the most equity, those who own the most assets are the super wealthy. They're the Bezos and the Elon Musks of the world. So during this time, whereby the US is lecturing everybody else in the world, what we saw was a sitting senator, a very powerful senator, Elizabeth Warren, use Facebook, which she is trying to regulate, and say that, basically a government oversight body should determine what citizens should be allowed to even place an ad or post anything on Facebook. She uses it to post some hate speech against Elon Musk, who she's angry with because he's worth something like $250 billion more over the past 2 years because of all of her money printing. All of the stimulus checks, all the inflation that's caused is causing his wealth to go up. So the irony of Elizabeth Warren paying Facebook to post hate speech. Here are 6 Facebook ads that Senator Warren is running against Elon Musk, calling Elon a whining baby and scared. The ad reads, Elon Musk is whining like a baby to his millions of Twitter followers. He must be scared because he knows what every other billionaire in America does, and that he's been freeloading off of working people, and that I won't back down from a fight. Will you chip in $10 to help Warren Democrats pass a wealth tax, keep the 1% in check, and fight for working people? She's the vampire squid. She is the vampire squid. It's just like remarkable. Like, okay, Elon Musk was worth $40 billion before the pandemic. After Elizabeth Warren got involved, he's worth $300 billion. It's her fault that he's worth $300 billion, and now she's angry. The same thing happened with Mexico. It's all the demand for these narcotics are from Americans. The Americans are the ones demanding it, and yet they're the ones like, hey, we're going to come arrest your people. We're going to come arrest your citizens for providing all of these drugs that Americans are demanding. So, where is the justice in that?
I have no idea. I mean, Elizabeth Warren says things and attacks America's entrepreneurs in ways that are unconscionably stupid. And I'm surprised that she has any political career whatsoever. But America seems to thrive on this kind of, again, the Alec Baldwin defense, where we shoot people in the face, but we claim we have no idea where the bullets came from. So Elizabeth Warren's saying we print money by the trillions. And it made a lot of these billionaires hundreds of billions of dollars since the pandemic. And we have no idea where the trillions came from, even though we're the ones that printed the money. Elizabeth, when you smell the flatulence that you just farted, that's your own fart. Okay? Moron. Such a moron. Man, I feel bad for that country. Okay, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, much more coming your way. Welcome back to the Keiser Report. I'm Max Keiser. Time now to turn to Jose Rodriguez of Talent Land, formerly of Bit. So, Jose, welcome back.
Well, thank you very much for having me for, I think it's my 7th time with you.
Yeah, you're one of our favorite guests, an audience favorite. You got your finger on the Bitcoin pulse in Mexico, all over Latin America. You were just in the great event down in El Salvador, La BitConf. What was your takeaway from that? How did you get the impression?
I mean, it's one of my favorite events in the world. I mean, for everyone that's in the US, North America, Europe, you have to come to La BitConf, to the Latin American Bitcoin Conference, besides having great speakers, it's also like all this experience coming and getting to know countries that you would normally not go. Like this time it was in El Salvador. And well, with Talentland and with Blockchain Land, we helped Rodolfo, who's been a good friend since various years, being co-organizers of the event. And we also did the live streaming. So we used all the channels of Talentland to get a bigger reach. So we reached over 300,000 people.
Wow. Now, the big story, of course, is that the president of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, made Bitcoin legal tender not too long ago. It set off a firestorm all over Latin America. It caught a lot of attention from central banks around the world. Is this the beginning of a revolution? What's going on?
Well, at least for the country, it's one of the biggest revolutions economic-wise. They have had the biggest growth in their history, over 10% of economic growth. I mean, in Mexico, that hasn't happened since the 1950s, which is amazing. And also what is going on with, besides being legal tender, is that they're welcoming all this different country, all these different people, companies, and investors to come in and to have advantages of coming to El Salvador. So many companies are going over there, investing, and even opening their headquarters, which is great. So they're gonna have all this innovation, investment, economic development, and technological development that we're not seeing in many parts of the world. What we're seeing in other parts of the world and most of the world is this huge resistance against this technology.
Right. Now, we know each other a long time, and we both came out of banking and finance. And when I saw the plans for the volcano bond, Samson Mao, of course, over Blockstream, kind of the architect of these volcano bonds, 50% Bitcoin, 50% infrastructure spend, and you mentioned 10% growth rate for the country. I mean, why can't this country grow 20% next year?
It will. I mean, on the other side, El Salvador is one of the smallest economies and populations, not only in the whole American continent, but also in Central America. So if this trend continues, you're going to see this growth being the biggest in the region and probably in the world. And also the economic and social development that they're going to have. I mean, all this talent, all this green field for companies and for people to go over there and innovate and to do everything that they're having trouble with regulators or with banks or with different people that have interest of not making this work. Because also El Salvador is going to have the best financial system in the world because they have the best financial system and they have the best currency, which is Bitcoin.
Right, and they're going to build Bitcoin City, which is no income tax, no capital gains tax, no payroll tax. There's going to be a value-added tax, and it's going to be like an economic-free zone, essentially. You're making ATMs, Bitcoin ATMs in El Salvador, so you're creating jobs.
Yeah, so one of the adventures that I've had since 6 months ago was going with a good friend, Eric Grill from Chainbytes, and we opened a factory over there actually and a company, and we started experimenting. This was way before when just the law passed, so there was way before the tax exemptions and everything. But it was a very interesting experiment to see how we could migrate his production from China to El Salvador. And right now there are better conditions for companies to go. And besides that, I mean, all the ministers, I mean, the Minister of Investment, Finance, Economy, Tourism, Culture, I've met with all of them since I arrived over there, and they have been so open and welcoming, not only to me, but to investors and people that are interested on coming to El Salvador and also investing and coming to their country. And what they say is that before Bitcoin law, many people that are going right now, not only to invest, but as tourists, who have never considered going over to Bitcoin. And it's great, you have to go. You can pay your breakfast in Denny's with Bitcoin Lightning Network in seconds. No chargebacks like with Visa and MasterCards.
Wow, what we've been saying about Bitcoin for years is happening. We've always speculated what country would be first to adopt Bitcoin's legal standard. El Salvador was on nobody's bingo card.
Yeah.
But with Bukele in charge, you know, he really saw the potential of this. So let's talk about Mexico for a second. You know, I remember talking to Ricardo Salinas about Bitcoin 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah.
He was a skeptic at that time. I finally got him, orange-pilled him over, it took a few years. But now his company, Electra, is going to be accepting Bitcoin. There's something like the Walmart, if you will, of Mexico. How big is this?
He's one of the biggest retail stores, not only in Mexico, but in all Latin America. And he's now accepting payments with Bitcoin that started recently. But also something interesting that he's doing is giving some attractive discounts if you pay with Bitcoin. People have asked him if he's going to keep some Bitcoin in the balance sheet. He says yes, which will also be interesting because he personally I had the opportunity to interview him in June 2021 and see his perspective about Bitcoin and how he sees it as a better version of money and investment, as the only investment that you could have. Something really funny that he told me, that I asked him, what if you were to travel 30 years in the future? What money would you take? And he says, no stinking fiat. It's worthless. And even more right now, because all the money that is being printed, not only in Latin America, not only in Africa, but in the United States.
He made that comment, something to the order of no stinking fiat. And I noticed that these world leaders now, with Bitcoin as their base currency, are free to speak more openly because it's depoliticized. Forget about de-fiaticized, but there's a lot of politics that gets disintermediated out of existence when you have money that is incorruptible. It filters up to governments that are equally incorruptible. Yeah. Is that true?
Yes, of course. It's something that's very unfortunate that we have lived over the ages in Latin America is that politicians, corrupt central bankers get their dirty hands inside monetary policy, inflation, money printing, and harm the population. You have seen this huge inflation, these huge devaluations, for example, what is happening recently in Argentina, what has happened in Venezuela, that you have also had that all over Latin America, and that is because there is this intersection between politics and economy in which there are conflict of interest because one wants to continue printing, wants to continue doing budget, wants to continue having budget for his buddies, political parties, etc. And on the other side, you have to be responsible with people's money because what's happening, what we're seeing right now in the States, in Mexico, and various countries, your money is going to be worth 5%, 10%, 20% less in a year, and you're going to be having to earn more or make more just to have the same worth of your money.
Right, the banana republicification of North of America is going to be shocking to a lot of people, whereas countries like El Salvador are rejecting the hyperinflation. And also it's interesting to see that a lot of the corruption one associates with Latin America, we now see in Washington, D.C. Politicians like Nancy Pelosi openly, corruptly trading on inside information and robbing the public coffers. It's right, shocking, but everyone loves it. So let's talk about your role in Bitcoin in terms of Mexico. Tell us about your events built around educating the people. You get tens of thousands of people coming to your events, to Talent Land. Yeah. Tell us more about it.
Well, actually 2022 is going to be my 10th year now in Bitcoin. I knew about Bitcoin around the time that you did, but I didn't start investing or didn't start being an entrepreneur. So next year is going to be actually my 10th year that I started doing this full time. And something that I started doing since I began here was creating not only companies and not only different opportunities, but also creating community. So that has been part of my road, and right now, like you said, I'm part of Talent Land, which is the biggest science, innovation, business event in Latin America and in Spanish. In the last physical event, we had 62,000 attendees, and right now in an online events, we have had over 3 million people online looking at our events. That's why with La BitConf we did this partnership. So we did the streaming because we have been very successful in doing massive events. And in these massive events, I run the blockchain part, but we also have developer, business, gaming, so all these different things. So people can start from kids, teenagers, grown-ups to entrepreneurs, getting to know about all these different technologies and themes that is going on around the world, and well, with top speakers. Now, of course, Max and Stacy have been there, so has Steve Wozniak, Randy Zuckerberg, we've had Edward Snowden, so we have some great speakers over there.
So who's going to be next in Latin America to go Bitcoin legal standard after El Salvador made the first move?
I was expecting ever since the fintech law for it to be Mexico. Unfortunately, that is a path that they're not interested right now in the government. I see a lot of interest in Paraguay. They're moving around with their politicians. I see also some interest in other Central American countries now that they're seeing the success in El Salvador, Guatemala, for example. They're very active.
Would there be immigration from other Latin American countries into El Salvador based on the Bitcoin standard being adopted there? And would these countries need to make Bitcoin legal tender to stop people from leaving Guatemala and other countries going to El Salvador?
That's right. That's funny. Like the same stuff that happened with Mexico, that more US people are coming to Mexico than the other way around, is going to happen to El Salvador. Many people from the United States, from Europe, from all over Latin America are going to go there. And instead of trying to flee over to the United States, they're going to go to the Bitcoin country. They're going to go to the Bitcoin nation, which is having this economic growth, business opportunities, job opportunities that you're not seeing elsewhere. And because headquarters moving from all over the world onto El Salvador because of all this tax and business pro-tax and pro-business policies, you're going to see more good employment coming to El Salvador and people going to El Salvador looking for those jobs.
Yeah, and the quality of life is fantastic. Surfing, pupusas, yeah, they got everything. It's all there. It is kind of like Bitcoin paradise. All right, Jose Rodriguez from Townland, thanks for being on Keiser Report for a 7th time.
Thank you very much for having me again, and great to have you here in Mexico, and hope to see you again many more times.
Absolutely. And that's going to do it for this edition of Keiser Report with me, Max Keiser, and Stacy Herbert. Again, thanks to our guest, Jose Rodriguez. Until next time, bye, y'all.